The wind was cold on the edge of the mining colony. It carried dust and tiny rocks, scratching everything in its path. Ray pulled his coat tighter and walked slowly to his rented housing pod. The day had been long and painful. His back ached from lifting heavy mining tools. His hands were dry and cracked, but all he wanted now was rest and silence. As he reached his metal door, he stopped. Something was sitting outside his home. Not something, someone. It was a girl, small and curled up, wrapped in nothing but an old dirty blanket. She didn't look human. Her skin was a soft shade of glowing blue, and silver patterns shimmered faintly on her cheeks. Her hair was long and tangled, covering part of her face. She didn't speak, just sat there, like the wind itself had forgotten her. Ray stared at her for a moment, unsure. Was she dangerous? Was she hurt? He took a cautious step forward. Then he saw the paper taped to her arm. It was a rent notice. Bold red letters screamed "evicted" across it. Ray looked down at her again, and something tightened in his chest. She had nowhere to go. "You can't sleep here," Ray said, his voice flat. The girl looked up slowly, her eyes big and glowing softly. She didn't say a word. He looked around, hoping someone else would deal with her, but no one came. This part of the colony was quiet. "Almost forgotten? Did your landlord throw you out?" he asked. She gave a small nod, still silent. Her hands were shaking, but she tried to hide them under the blanket. Ray sighed. This wasn't his problem. He was broke too, 1 week late on rent himself. If the landlord saw her here, he might come after Ray next. He walked past her, tapped the door panel, and the lock clicked open. But as he stepped inside, he heard a soft voice behind him. "I can't pay rent," she whispered, "but I'll do what a man loves most." Ray turned slowly, confused. "What?" he asked. She looked up, her face serious but gentle. "And I'll fold your laundry too," she added with a faint smile. Ray blinked, unsure if she was joking or being honest. But she didn't move, didn't laugh, just sat there, waiting for him to say something. He wasn't a fool. He knew what her first words could mean. On many colonies, girls like her were sold into bad work, some by force, some because they had no choice. But something about her didn't feel like a trap. Her eyes weren't playful or seductive. They were tired, like she hadn't slept in days, like she didn't even know what real kindness was. Ray stood in the doorway, staring at her. She looked down again, maybe ashamed, maybe expecting him to yell or kick her away. But he didn't. He walked back to the door and held it open. "Come in," he said quietly. She didn't smile wide or cheer. She just nodded and stood up slowly, her legs weak. She followed him inside like a shadow. The pod was small, with one bed, one chair, a broken heater, and a pile of unwashed clothes. Ray sat on the chair and pointed to the corner near the heater. "You can sit there just for tonight," he said. The girl nodded again and sat down, wrapping herself in the blanket. He watched her carefully. She didn't touch anything. She didn't even ask for food. She looked around the pod and then quietly reached for the pile of clothes. She started folding them one by one. Ray wanted to stop her, but didn't. Something about her gentle movements calmed him. "What's your name?" he asked. She looked up, then back at the clothes. "Talia," she said softly. "I'm Ray," he replied. They didn't speak much after that. The night grew colder, but the heater worked just enough. Talia kept folding his laundry, humming a strange tune in a soft alien language. Ray leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. Something told him this girl wasn't just lost. She was hiding from something, or someone, and now she was in his home. He didn't know it yet. But letting her in was the start of something much bigger than he could ever imagine. And outside, under the dim lights of the colony, a small drone blinked red, recording the moment he opened his door to her. Somebody had seen it. Somebody was coming. Ray couldn't sleep. The heater in the corner buzzed weakly, making a soft hum that filled the silence. He kept his eyes half open, pretending to rest, but really, he was watching her, this quiet, strange girl named Talia. She sat by the vent, legs folded under the old blanket he gave her. She hadn't asked for anything. Not food, not water, not even comfort. She just folded his clothes carefully, like it mattered. Even the torn socks and old shirts were treated like treasures. Ray didn't understand it. Why would someone like her, clearly from a faraway species, maybe even royalty once, care about a stranger's laundry? Talia hummed softly to herself. Her alien melody was sad, slow, but beautiful. The kind of song someone sings to themselves when they have no one left to hear it. Ray shifted in his chair and cleared his throat. You don't have to fold everything, he said quietly. Talia looked up, blinking. I want to, she whispered. It keeps my hands warm. Ray didn't argue. There was something calming about watching her, but still. He wondered what pain she was hiding behind that soft voice and tired smile. The minutes turned into hours. Ray finally drifted into sleep. But it didn't last. He woke with a start. Heart pounding, a noise not loud but sharp. Like metal tapping on metal, he looked toward the door. Nothing. But then he saw it. Talia had stopped folding and was crouched. Holding her breath. Did you hear that? Ray asked in a low voice. She nodded, her eyes wide and glowing faintly in the dark. Ray stood up slowly, grabbed the metal rod he used for mining. He moved to the door, pressed his ear against it, another tap. Like claws dragging across steel. Ray motioned for Talia to stay low. He stepped outside carefully, looking left, then right, nothing in sight. Just dust, quiet, and shadows, but something didn't feel right. His pod security light flickered once, then went dead. He returned inside and bolted the door. Talia was sitting in the corner again, shaking slightly. I'm sorry, she said. Almost in a whisper, Ray frowned. What for? They're looking for me, she said. The people I ran from. Ray sat down slowly. He didn't speak right away. Finally, he asked, Who are they? Talia didn't look at him. People who buy girls like me, she said softly. They paid for me like property, but I escaped. Ray felt anger rise in his chest. Is that why you said those things earlier? He asked. She nodded once. I thought, if I gave you something, you'd let me stay just for one night. Her voice cracked. I didn't mean to offer what you thought. I don't know what a man truly wants. I only know what they demand. Ray looked at her. Really looked this time. She wasn't weak, but she was worn down. Treated like she was nothing until she started to believe it. He stood up and grabbed another blanket from the tiny storage compartment. Here, he said, placing it beside her. No one's going to take you tonight. Talia looked up, surprised. Why are you helping me? Ray didn't answer right away. Because I know what it feels like to be thrown away, he finally said. He pointed to the old couch. You sleep there tonight. I'll take the floor. She hesitated but nodded and curled up slowly on the couch. Her glowing skin dimmed as she wrapped herself in the warmth. Ray lay on the cold floor, arms behind his head, staring at the cracked ceiling, listening to the soft rhythm of her breathing. Just as he began to doze off, she spoke again. Ray, yeah? Thank you. He didn't reply, just closed his eyes and let silence settle in, but outside, hidden behind the rusted pipes of the colony's wall, a pair of glowing red eyes watched the pod, recording everything. The drone from earlier wasn't the only thing following her. A tall figure in black armor stepped forward, checking the signal. He whispered into a comm device, target located, awaiting retrieval. Inside, the heater buzzed gently. Talia slept for the first time in days, and Ray had no idea that their simple night of warmth and quiet was the start of something deadly. The sun on this mining colony didn't rise like on Earth. It crawled up slow and red, turning the dust into blood-colored light. Ray opened his eyes and sat up, his body stiff from sleeping on the floor. For a second, he forgot she was there. Then he turned and saw Talia curled up on the couch. Blanket wrapped around her like a shell. She looked peaceful, her glowing blue skin dim under the early light. But Ray remembered the fear in her voice from last night. The way she whispered about being sold. The way she offered to fold his clothes just to stay. He moved quietly to the small sink and poured some water into a dented cup. The heater hummed in the background, still fighting the cold. He was just about to heat up some ration cubes when, bang, 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 a fist slammed the door. Ray froze. Talia sat up instantly, her eyes wide with panic. Ray, she whispered. It's them. He motioned for her to stay down and moved to the door. Who is it? He asked through the metal. A gruff voice answered. Landlord's office. Open up. Ray's heart sank. He was already behind on his rent. If they saw Talia here, it'd be worse. I'm not dressed, Ray lied. Come back later. Another voice joined in, colder and smoother. This is not about rent, human, it said. We're here for the girl. Ray's blood went cold. He turned toward Talia, who was already backing away, tears rising in her eyes. No, she whispered. I can't go back. They'll break me. Ray stepped away from the door and locked the secondary bolts. He grabbed a tool wrench and stood in front of her. Why do they want you so badly? he asked. Talia's voice cracked as she spoke. I was promised to someone rich, a government man on my world. I was just 13 when they marked my body for ownership. I ran the first chance I got. But they've been chasing me ever since. Ray clenched his jaw. Outside, more banging and now footsteps. They weren't alone. Open the door or we'll blast it down, the cold voice warned. Ray looked around, thinking fast. He had no weapons, no backup, no plan. But he had one thing, a reason to fight. He looked at Talia and said firmly, "Go hide in the storage bin." Now? She nodded and crawled inside, shutting the lid gently behind her. Ray grabbed the nearest thing he could swing, a broken metal bar. Then, with a deep breath, he opened the door just an inch. Two figures stood there. One was the greasy landlord. Angry and impatient, the other was tall, armored in black, face hidden under a sleek helmet. "We're taking the girl," the armored one said. His voice like steel. Ray didn't flinch. "She's not here," he lied. The landlord pushed forward. "We saw her go in. You're harboring a runaway and you owe me rent." "I'll sell both of you to cover the loss." Ray shoved the door shut. The armored man moved fast, too fast. A blast of energy slammed into the door. Blowing it open, Ray flew back, crashing into the wall. Talia screamed from inside the storage bin. The black armored figure stepped inside. Scanning the room, he walked straight toward the sound. Ray struggled up, blood in his mouth. He charged the man with the metal bar. It wasn't smart, but it was all he had. The man turned just in time to block him. They fought, metal against armor, strength against training. Ray wasn't strong enough, but he was desperate. He swung wild, hit the helmet, then got kicked hard in the ribs. He collapsed, gasping. The armored man opened the bin. Talia looked up, terrified. But instead of screaming, she closed her eyes and whispered something. A strange pulse of energy burst from her hands, just a flicker. But enough. The armored man stumbled back. Ray pulled himself up and tackled him again. This time he didn't stop. He smashed the helmet until it cracked. The man dropped, unconscious. The landlord had already run. Ray turned to Talia, who was shaking. "You have powers?" he asked, panting. "Only a little," she replied. "They hurt me when I used them before." Ray grabbed her hand. "We're leaving now." He packed what he could, tools, water, 2 food bars. They left the broken pod behind and ran into the morning dust. Ray didn't know where they were going. But one thing was clear. Talia wasn't safe here anymore. And neither was he. The system would come after them now. She wasn't allowed to leave, but she had, and Ray had helped her. They had no money, no backup, and no future. But they had each other. And one reason to keep going. Freedom. The desert wind howled as Ray guided the old mining rover across the rocky land. The vehicle rattled with every bump, its engine coughing like an old beast refusing to die. Talia sat beside him, her arms wrapped tight around her chest. Eyes fixed on the horizon, they had escaped the landlord, the bounty hunter, and the broken pod. But Ray knew it wasn't over. They were being hunted, not for money, not for a crime, but because Talia had been promised. After hours of silence, Ray finally asked, "Talia, who exactly were you promised to?" Her hands tightened, her voice barely a whisper. "Governor Dresk," she said. "He controls 6 planets, 3 moons, and 1 private slave dome." Ray gripped the wheel harder. He had heard of Dresk, a powerful alien noble. Feared for his cruelty, rumors said he bought rare specimens and kept them as pets. "Prizes, or worse, he paid for me when I was 9, Talia continued, her eyes hollow. "They tattooed his mark on my back. Said I'd belong to him when I turned 16. Ray's stomach turned. He couldn't believe someone could be treated like property. "And how did you escape?" he asked. Talia closed her eyes. "An old servant helped me. Gave me stolen credits and directions to the colony. I ran for 3 nights across the acid fields before I found a trader who smuggled me here." Ray didn't speak for a moment. He couldn't imagine that kind of life. But now she was sitting beside him in this rusty rover, trusting him. And he wasn't going to let her down. The rover beeped. A warning signal. Fuel low, they needed shelter fast up ahead. Ray spotted a broken communications tower and an old garage half buried in sand. They pulled in and parked behind the structure. Out of sight inside, the garage was cold, dark, but safe. They lit a small heater, ate half a food bar each, and wrapped themselves in thin blankets. Ray checked the rover's data pad. Signal intercepts showed chatter. Dresk's forces had landed. Search teams were active, and a special recovery agent was deployed. "They won't stop," Ray said, staring at the data. No, Talia replied quietly. Dresk never gives up what he thinks belongs to him. That night, as the wind screamed outside, Talia finally showed him the tattoo. She turned around, pulled down the back of her shirt, and there it was, a glowing mark, etched in a language Ray couldn't read. But it pulsed like it was alive. It's a binding sigil, she said. If they scan me, it confirms I'm his. Ray stared at it furious. You're not his, he said. You're not anyone's. Talia looked at him surprised. You really believe that? Yes, Ray said firmly. You're free now, and we'll remove that mark if it's the last thing I do. Suddenly, a distant hum filled the garage. Engines. Lights blinked through the cracks in the wall, bright. Controlled military grade. They found us, Talia said. Panic rising in her voice, Ray grabbed a wrench, shoved supplies into a bag, and pulled Talia toward the rover. They jumped in, engines stuttering to life. Blaster fire hit the walls behind them as they sped off into the darkness. A sleek black ship followed them from above. Ray swerved hard, dodging rocky cliffs and sand pits. The ship dropped a flare, lighting up the desert like fire. Suddenly, a voice filled the rover's comm system. Deep, calm, and terrifying. Talia, the voice said, you belong to me. Return now and I'll spare the human. Ray's knuckles turned white on the controls. Talia stared at the speaker, trembling. Dresk, she whispered. Ray turned off the comms and shouted. You're not going back to him. The rover hit a sharp slope and jumped, crashing down and throwing sparks. They drove into a narrow canyon. Hiding under the stone shadows, the ship lost sight of them for a moment, enough to shut everything down and go silent. They waited, barely breathing. The ship hovered, scanned, then moved on. For now they were safe inside the dark rover, Talia whispered. He'll come himself next time. Ray nodded. Then we'll be ready. She looked at him, eyes shining with something new, hope. You don't want me to pay you back. Not even for helping me, she said softly. Ray shook his head. You don't owe me anything. Talia, she smiled gently. Then, let me stay. Fold your laundry, make food, help however I can. Not because I have to, she added, but because I want to. And in that quiet moment hidden deep in the canyon, a runaway slave girl and a broke human man became something stronger than fugitives. They became partners against everything that was coming. The canyon was quiet. Too quiet. Only the soft ticking of the rover's cooling engine broke the silence. Ray leaned against the metal shell, sweat on his face. Hands shaking from the escape, Talia sat nearby. Her knees pulled to her chest, eyes scanning the sky through a crack above. It had been one day since Dresk's voice echoed through the comms. One day since they'd barely outrun the black ship. But they both knew something. This wasn't escape. It was delay. The desert moon was burning hot by day. Freezing cold at night, dust swirled through the narrow canyon like ghosts. Ray looked at the data pad, frowning. Fuel's almost gone, he said. We can't keep running. Talia didn't answer. She stared at the tattoo on her wrist, the same glowing sigil she had hidden for years. It pulses harder when he's near, she whispered. Ray turned to her. You can feel him? Yes, she said, her voice quiet. He doesn't just own planets, Ray, he owns minds. He trained us to feel fear like a signal. Ray looked away. He hated this galaxy sometimes. He hated that someone like Dresk could brand people like items. He hated that the law allowed it. They moved deeper into the canyon, leading the rover on foot now to save the last drops of fuel. Ray found a cave entrance halfway up a cliff wall with effort. They pulled the rover in and covered the front with dry brush and dust netting. Inside it was dark and cool. The silence was almost peaceful. Almost. Ray built a fire, cracked open the last ration bar, and split it in half. Talia didn't eat right away. She looked at Ray, then reached for his laundry bag. I'll wash these tomorrow, she said. There's a spring below. Ray chuckled softly. You always talk about laundry like it's holy work. Talia smiled a little. It's the one thing no one ever punished me for. When I folded things, no one hit me. So I kept doing it. Ray didn't know what to say. Instead, he leaned closer and gently placed his hand on hers. You're safe here, he said. Even if just for tonight outside. The sky turned orange, then blood red, then black. The canyon's walls echoed with distant engines. Patrol drones flew high above, searching, blinking red through the darkness. But in the cave, Ray and Talia stayed still. Hidden, breathing quietly in the morning. Talia climbed down the rocks with a small metal bucket. The spring was cold, clear, and clean. She dipped the clothes into the water, rubbing them softly one by one. She didn't hum this time, didn't smile. Her eyes scanned every shadow, every rock. She wasn't just folding clothes now. She was surviving. Suddenly, she heard a sound. A footstep, crunching softly behind her. She froze, slowly turning. A young alien boy stood there, eyes wide, arms shaking. He looked poor, thinner than Talia, with a torn shirt and patched trousers. He held a wooden stick like a weapon. "Who are you?" he asked. Talia raised both hands slowly. "I'm not here to hurt you." The boy looked her up and down. "Are you running too?" Talia nodded. The boy lowered the stick. "My mother said this canyon hides many people like you," he said. "Escaped ones." Talia stepped forward gently. "Do you know anyone with medicine or fuel?" The boy scratched his head. "There's a village over the hill. They trade things, but only if you have something to offer." Talia nodded, thanked him, and ran back to the cave. Ray listened to her story, then nodded slowly. "We'll go tonight, not during the day," he said. "Too risky." As the stars appeared overhead, they pushed the rover out and drove slowly through the narrow valley. The village lights appeared after 3 hours, small fires, tense broken domes but filled with life. Ray parked the rover at the edge and they walked in together. People stared but no one spoke. A large alien woman with one robotic arm stepped forward. "You don't belong here," she growled. "We're not looking for trouble," Ray said calmly. "We just need fuel, maybe a few supplies." The woman looked at Talia, then at Ray. "You bring a branded girl here?" she asked, voice cold. "Do you even know what she is?" "I know she's not yours," Ray said, stepping forward. "She's free." The woman stared for a long time, then she nodded. "You've got guts, human," she said. "I like that." She tossed a small fuel cell to him. "In return, she helps in the laundry tent for the night." Ray looked at Talia. Unsure, Talia smiled. "I'll fold for freedom," she said. This time by choice. Ray stood back and watched her walk into the tent with her head held high. She wasn't a runaway anymore, she was a fighter, and in a world full of heat, dust, and death, Talia had found something rare. Hope the village looked calm on the outside. Campfires glowed, traders whispered. Tired children lay curled in cloth hammocks. But deep inside the laundry tent, Talia worked with quiet hands and sharp eyes. She folded shirts, patched sleeves, and placed clothes into neat piles, like building small shelters from pain. Ray waited outside, leaning against the rover. The fuel cell was already plugged in, charging slowly. They just needed one more night before moving on. Ray kept watching the stars. There was something about tonight that felt wrong. The air was too still, the sky too quiet. No wind, no bugs, no night birds. Then he saw it, a flash, a blink of silver far above, like something entering the atmosphere without lights. Too smooth for a meteor, too fast for a drone. He stepped forward, eyes narrowed. And then it happened. A soundless ship, black as shadow, slid down from the stars. No flame, no noise, just presence. It hovered above the canyon edge, shaped like a claw wrapped in armor. Ray's heart pounded. He ran into the laundry tent, grabbed Talia's arm. "We have to go now." Talia looked confused, but then saw the fear in his eyes. She didn't argue. They grabbed their things and ran toward the rover. Behind them, villagers began to scream. The black ship landed in the center of the camp. The earth trembled as its legs touched down. A single ramp opened with a hiss, and out stepped a tall figure, dressed in black robes lined with silver thread. His face was hidden behind a smooth metal mask, but everyone knew who it was. Governor Dresk. Talia froze. Her breath caught in her throat. Ray pushed her forward. "Keep going," he whispered. Dresk stepped forward like he owned the ground beneath him. His voice boomed through a speaker on his chest. "Talia," he called, "my beautiful one, my property." "You've run long enough," Ray turned, eyes full of rage. "She's not yours," he shouted. The villagers fell silent. Afraid to be caught in the middle, Dresk looked toward him, then down at the laundry bag Talia still held. "A girl folds clothes like a slave, yet thinks she is free," Dresk said coldly. "How amusing." Talia stepped in front of Ray, her legs shaking. "I am not your toy anymore," she said, her voice trembling but clear. "I choose where I go, who I help, and who I trust." Dresk raised one hand. From behind him, armored guards stepped out, weapons raised. "Choices are for people, not property," he growled. Ray reached into the rover and pulled out a modified mining tool. It wasn't much, but it could fire once, enough to cause a distraction. He looked at Talia, whispered, "When I shoot, run west. Follow the canyon edge." Talia grabbed his arm. "No, we do this together." Ray hesitated, then nodded. Boom! Ray fired the mining tool straight into the air, blasting sparks everywhere. Villagers ducked, guards flinched, and Talia took the chance. She pulled a bucket of wet laundry and threw it at the guards' feet. They slipped, their boots soaked. Ray tackled one of them, punched hard, took his weapon. Talia ran, but Dresk followed slowly, unhurried, confident, like a hunter walking toward a trapped animal. "You cannot run from your bond," Dresk said. "It is burned into your skin, your blood, your soul." Talia stopped, turned to face him. "I am not just skin," she said softly. "And you never touched my soul." From behind her, Ray yelled, "Now." Talia pulled the small stolen device from her sleeve. The signal blocker. She slammed it against the tattoo on her wrist. A pulse of light burst out, the mark flickered, then vanished. Dresk stopped, shocked. "What have you done?" He shouted. "I erased you," she said. "I erased everything you claimed." Ray grabbed her hand, and they ran back into the rover. He slammed the door shut, powered it on, the engine screamed. The wheels spun and they tore out of the village. Dresk fired once, the blast hitting the ground behind them. But he didn't chase, he stood in the dust, breathing heavily behind his mask, for the first time in years. He had lost something inside the rover. Talia trembled but smiled. The mark was gone. Ray reached over, took her hand. "You're free now," he said. Talia looked at him, tears in her eyes. "No," she whispered. "I chose to be, and that made all the difference." The rover sped through the canyon, bouncing over rocks and sliding across dust. Ray's hands gripped the controls, knuckles white, beside him. Talia sat in silence, her eyes closed, her hand pressed over her wrist. The tattoo was gone, but the memory of its burn still lingered. They had no food left, no water, and almost no charge. But they had one thing Dresk couldn't buy or brand. Will Ray knew they couldn't run forever. Not from a man like Dresk. He had power, ships, soldiers, and control over systems that looked the other way. But what he didn't have was a conscience. The sun began to rise behind them, turning the rocks golden and the sky into fire. Talia opened her eyes slowly. Her voice was quiet but strong. "I'm done running," she said. "I'd rather die free than live in chains again." Ray looked at her and nodded. "Then let's make sure if he comes for us again, it's his last mistake." They stopped in a jagged crater basin. Surrounded by cliffs and tunnels, Ray remembered it from his mining days. There were old tunnels down here, full of unstable energy cores. One blast and everything above would come crashing down. While Ray worked on setting the trap, Talia folded his last shirt. She laid it gently on the rover seat, smoothed the edges, and placed a single stone on top. It was a goodbye. Not to him, but to the girl she used to be. The innocent girl who thought folding laundry could protect her. The scared girl who whispered offers to stay warm. She was gone now, Talia, the free woman. The fighter had taken her place. Ray finished the wiring and set the detonator. If they were caught, he'd hit the trigger and bury everything under a mountain of rock. A one-way escape, but one worth taking if it meant ending Dresk's chase forever. Night fell again, and with it came the hum of engines. Talia heard it first. Low, steady, growing louder. She turned toward the sky and whispered, "He's here." Ray grabbed the detonator, handed her a small wristband device. "If I go down, you run," he said. "No," she replied. "We end this together." A ship descended above the crater. Hovering just long enough for a figure to drop from its belly, Dresk landed like a god from the sky, surrounded by 2 armored guards. But this time he didn't wear his mask. His face was cruel, marked with thin scars. His eyes were cold, full of fury. "You destroyed the mark," he growled. "But that doesn't change what you are." Talia stepped forward. "Fearless, I am not a thing," she said, her voice echoing in the crater. "I'm not yours. Not anymore." Dresk pulled a blade from his side. Sharp and glowing. "You will be," he said, stepping closer. Ray moved between them, weapon raised, but Dresk laughed. "A broken human dares to block me?" "You're not a god, Dresk," Ray replied. "You're just a coward hiding behind power." The first guard lunged, and Ray fired. The blast threw the alien back into the rock wall. Unconscious, the second charged, but Talia raised her hand. She focused not on pain, not on fear, but on freedom. A pulse of light exploded from her palm, striking the guard in the chest. He dropped, groaning. Dresk looked stunned. You were trained to obey, he hissed. Talia stepped closer, her voice steady. I was trained to survive. Ray pressed the detonator button halfway. One push left and the entire basin would collapse. Dresk raised his blade. Talia didn't flinch. She reached behind her and pulled out something. A folded shirt, the last one she had cleaned. She stepped forward and calmly laid it on the rocky ground between them. This is what I choose to do, she said, to fold with peace. Not fear, Dresk growled and charged forward. Ray shouted. Talia stood still, boom. The edge of the basin shook. Not from the trap, but from a ship that suddenly dropped behind Dresk. It was a Union vessel, black and gold, marked with the flag of neutral enforcers. Someone had seen the earlier conflict. Someone had called in the law. Dresk turned too late. Blasters locked on him. A voice rang out. Stand down, Governor Dresk. You are under arrest for illegal trafficking and unauthorized ownership of sentient beings. Dresk froze. For the first time, he was the one being hunted. Ray exhaled slowly, lowering the detonator. Talia stared as guards cuffed Dresk and dragged him to the ship. He shouted, cursed, called her names. But she didn't respond. She simply bent down, picked up the folded shirt and smiled. Later, as the sun began to rise again, Ray and Talia sat beside the rover, watching the enforcer ship vanish into the clouds. You did it, Ray said. No, Talia replied. We did it. She took his shirt and handed it to him. He looked at the folds, clean, straight, perfect. But this time it wasn't just laundry. It was a symbol of choice, of freedom, of love. And it was the final fold she would ever make for anyone who saw her as less than a person.